3, 2, 1, the moment is here.
The vintage 2001 Chevy pickup truck idled in the hospital parking lot, its engine coughing against the morning fog that rolled across the asphalt like cigarette smoke. Elijah Kendall gripped his phone so tight his knuckles went white, listening to his uncle's voice crackle through the speaker. "Eli, you're talking about great-grandfather's land. That 40 acres has been in our family for 90 years. Uncle Pete, I need the money now, today." "For what? You won't even tell me what this is about." Elijah stared at the hospital's main entrance through his windshield. A woman in scrubs walked past his truck, her face masked, tired eyes visible above the blue fabric. Everyone looked exhausted these days. Everyone looked afraid. "Marla's sick," he said finally. "Real sick." The silence stretched between them like a taut wire. "How sick?" "The kind where experimental treatments cost $40,000 out of pocket." Uncle Pete's breathing changed over the phone. "Jesus, Eli. Why didn't you say so from the start?" "Because saying it makes it real." 3 minutes later, Elijah had his uncle's word. The land would sell within a week. He killed the engine and walked toward the hospital, carrying the weight of 4 generations on his shoulders. The cancer ward smelled like industrial disinfectant and fear. Marla sat in the consultation room wearing a blue hospital gown that made her skin look gray. At 39, she'd always been the stronger one between them. Now she looked fragile as paper. "What did Dr. Richardson say?" Elijah asked, settling into the plastic chair beside her bed. "Stage 3 ovarian, aggressive." Her voice was steady, clinical. 15 years of processing insurance claims had taught her to speak about medical disasters without emotion. Surgery, then chemo, then radiation. "Standard protocol gives me 60% survival at 5 years. "What about non-standard?" She looked at him. "There's a clinical trial in Philadelphia, new immunotherapy drug. 90% success rate in preliminary studies. But insurance won't cover experimental treatments. Cost is $42,000 upfront plus travel expenses." Elijah reached for her hand. Her fingers felt cold. "We'll figure it out." "With what money, Eli? We've got maybe $8,000 in savings. The mortgage, the kids' school expenses, your truck payment." "I said we'll figure it out." That afternoon, Elijah called his pension administrator. 22 years of contributing to his retirement fund, gone in a single wire transfer. He maxed out their credit cards, took a second mortgage on the house, and borrowed against his truck title. When he came home that evening, his son Travis was in the garage, working on a motorcycle engine. At 19, Travis had inherited Elijah's methodical nature and steady hands. He planned to study mechanical engineering after finishing his associate degree. "Dad, where's Mom?" "Resting upstairs." Travis wiped his hands on a shop rag. "Eva's been crying all day. She won't tell me what's wrong." Elijah found his 17-year-old daughter in her room, sprawled across her bed with textbooks scattered around her. Eva had always been dramatic, passionate about everything from environmental activism to her latest boyfriend. Today, her eyes were red and swollen. "Mom told me," she said without looking up. "About the cancer. We're going to beat this thing, Eva." "Are we?" "Because Mom looks scared. And Mom never looks scared about anything." Elijah sat on the edge of her bed. "Your mother is the toughest person I know. She's going to fight this with everything she has, and we're going to help her." "How?" "By being strong. By taking care of each other. By not giving up." Eva rolled over and looked at him. "Promise me she's going to be okay. I promise we're going to do everything possible to make sure she is." It wasn't the promise she wanted, but it was the only honest one he could give. The experimental treatment began 3 weeks later. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Elijah drove Marla to Philadelphia for immunotherapy infusions. The drive took 90 minutes each way, and he used vacation days, sick days, and unpaid leave to make the trips. Marla slept most of the way there and back. The treatment made her nauseous and exhausted, but her oncologist, Dr. Patricia Hoffman, reported encouraging results after the first month. "Her markers are dropping faster than we typically see," Dr. Hoffman explained during a follow-up appointment. "The immunotherapy is definitely working." Marla squeezed Elijah's hand. For the first time in weeks, she smiled. By December, her cancer was in full remission. The miracle they'd hoped for had actually happened. Marla's energy returned gradually, and by February, she was back to work full-time at Meridian Medical Insurance, processing claims with her usual efficiency. But something had changed. Marla became distant in ways that had nothing to do with her health. She worked late more often, went to bed after Elijah was already asleep, and spent long hours on her phone texting people she claimed were coworkers. "I'm still processing everything that happened," she explained when Elijah asked about her mood. "Almost dying changes how you see things." "How so?" "I don't know yet. I just feel different." Elijah accepted this explanation. Recovery from trauma took time, and Marla had always been private about her emotions. He focused on rebuilding their finances and getting their lives back to normal. Then, in March, he found the note. It was tucked under his windshield wiper after work, written on plain white paper in block letters. "Better watch your back. She's not sick anymore." Elijah stood in the community college parking lot, reading the message 3 times. Students walked past him toward their cars, laughing and talking about weekend plans, normal people living normal lives. He folded the note and put it in his wallet. That evening, Marla worked late again. She called at 7 to say she'd grab dinner near the office and be home by 10. Elijah cooked for himself, Travis, and Eva, listening to their conversation about Travis's new job at Henderson's auto shop and Eva's plans for senior prom. "Where's Mom?" Eva asked as they cleared the dishes. "Working late, again. She's been doing that a lot lately." "Business is busy," Elijah said. "Insurance claims always spike in the winter months." But as he washed dishes, he thought about the note. Who would write something like that? And why? The next morning, Elijah did something he'd never done in 20 years of marriage. He checked Marla's email. Her laptop was in the kitchen, still logged into her Gmail account. Elijah scrolled through her recent messages, feeling guilty but unable to stop himself. Most were work-related or correspondence with doctors about her follow-up appointments. Then he found a thread that made his stomach drop. The messages were to someone named Neil Withers, a compliance officer at Meridian Medical. The conversation started innocently enough, work discussions about policy changes and claims processing, but by January, the tone had shifted. "Can't stop thinking about our conversation yesterday. N. Me neither, this is complicated. M. Doesn't have to be. N. Everything is complicated right now. M. Coffee tomorrow? Just to talk. N. Okay, but just coffee. M. Elijah scrolled down. The messages became more frequent, more intimate. Neil, writing about how beautiful Marla looked during a meeting. Marla responding that she appreciated having someone who understood what she'd been through. The most recent message was from 3 days ago. "Can't wait to see you tonight. E thinks I'm working late. M. My place at 7? N. Yes. M. Elijah closed the laptop and sat at the kitchen table for a long time, staring at his hands. 20 years of marriage, 2 kids, a mortgage, a life built together brick by brick. He'd sold his inheritance to save her life, cashed out his pension, maxed out their credit cards, driven to Philadelphia twice a week for months, holding her hand while poison dripped into her veins, and she was fucking someone else. The logical part of his mind, the part that solved mechanical problems for a living, began analyzing the situation. Marla was smart and careful. She wouldn't leave obvious evidence unless she wanted to be caught, or unless she was getting sloppy because she felt safe. Either way, she'd made a mistake. Elijah went to work that day and taught his usual classes, appliance installation and repair fundamentals, and advanced diagnostic techniques. He helped students troubleshoot problems with washing machines and refrigerators, explaining how systems worked and what happened when they broke down. "The key to fixing anything," he told his afternoon class, "is understanding how it's supposed to work in the first place. You can't solve a problem until you know what caused it." After work, he drove to Best Buy and purchased a small digital recorder. Then he went home and waited. Marla arrived at 10:15 looking tired but not upset. She kissed his cheek and asked about his day. Her hair smelled like cologne that wasn't his. "How was work?" he asked. "Busy. We're dealing with a huge claims backlog from that ice storm last month." "Anyone staying late to help?" "A few people. Neil Withers has been putting in extra hours. Good thing, too, compliance is swamped." She said Neil's name without hesitation, looking directly at him. Either she was an exceptional liar or she genuinely believed she was handling the situation well. Over the next 2 weeks, Elijah gathered information. He installed a GPS tracker in Marla's car, recorded her phone conversations when possible, and documented her schedule. He told no one what he was doing. The pattern became clear quickly. Every Tuesday and Thursday, the same days they used to drive to Philadelphia for her treatments, Marla went to Neil Withers' apartment after work. She usually stayed until 9:30, then came home and acted normally. On weekends, she met him for coffee or lunch, claiming she was running errands or meeting her friend Darcy. Elijah researched Neil Withers online. 45 years old, divorced once, no children. He lived in a decent apartment complex about 10 minutes from Meridian Medical. His social media showed pictures of hiking trips, craft beer tastings, and local concerts. He looked ordinary, average height, thinning brown hair, friendly smile. The kind of man who would seem safe and understanding to a woman who'd just survived cancer. One Thursday evening in April, Elijah followed Marla to Neil's building and parked across the street. At 9:25, she emerged from the apartment complex, checking her phone as she walked to her car. She looked relaxed, almost happy. Elijah waited until she drove away, then approached the building. Neil's apartment was on the second floor, and his living room window faced the parking lot. The blinds were open, and Elijah could see him moving around inside, cleaning up. This was the man who was sleeping with his wife while Elijah paid off the debts he'd incurred to save her life. The next morning, Elijah called in sick to work and drove to downtown Pittsburgh to meet with a divorce attorney named Patricia Sullivan. Her office was in a glass tower overlooking the Allegheny River, and she specialized in complex family law cases. "How long have you been married?" she asked, reviewing the notes Elijah had provided. 20 years this September. Children? Travis is 19, Eva is 17. What kind of evidence do you have regarding the affair? Elijah handed her a folder containing printed emails, GPS tracking data, photographs, and financial records. Everything I could find without breaking any laws. Sullivan reviewed the materials carefully. This is thorough work. You've been planning this for a while. I wanted to be sure. About the affair or about what you want to do next? Both. What do you want, Mr. Kendall? Joint custody? The house? Alimony considerations? I want her to lose everything she values. Her job, her reputation, her financial security. I want the affair partner fired and publicly humiliated. I want sole custody of Travis if he chooses to live with me. And I want her to understand that actions have consequences. Sullivan leaned back in her chair. I've handled a lot of divorce cases, Mr. Kendall. What you're describing isn't just a divorce. It's a campaign of destruction. She destroyed our marriage while I was saving her life. I think proportional response is appropriate. Pennsylvania is a no-fault divorce state. Adultery won't necessarily impact property division or custody, but it will impact her employment. Meridian Medical has strict policies about relationships between employees, especially when one person supervises the other. Neil Withers is in compliance, which means he has oversight authority over Marla's department. Sullivan made notes. You've researched this. I research everything. She quoted her fee structure, and Elijah wrote a check. As he prepared to leave, Sullivan asked, have you considered counseling? Mediation? Sometimes marriages can survive infidelity. I sold my grandfather's land to pay for her treatment. I cashed out my pension. I maxed out our credit cards and took a second mortgage on our house. I drove her to Philadelphia twice a week for 4 months, held her hand while she vomited, shaved her head when her hair fell out, and slept beside her every night while she fought for her life. He stood up. She recovered, and the first thing she did was find someone else to make her feel special. There's nothing to counsel. That evening, Travis was in the garage when Elijah got home. His son had inherited not just his mechanical aptitude, but his preference for working with his hands when he needed to think. Dad, can I ask you something? Sure. Is everything okay with you and Mom? Eva thinks something's wrong. Elijah considered his response carefully. Travis was an adult, but he was still their son. Why does Eva think that? You guys barely talk to each other anymore? And Mom's been acting weird since she got better. Weird how? I don't know. Secretive. Like she's got something going on that she doesn't want to share. People change after major health scares. Sometimes it takes a while to process everything. Travis nodded, but he didn't look convinced. If you guys are having problems, I want you to know that I'm not taking sides. Whatever happens. What do you mean, whatever happens? Eva's already decided Mom is the victim in whatever's going on. She thinks you're being cold and distant. But I've been watching, and I think you're just trying to hold everything together. Elijah felt something tight in his chest. Travis had always been observant, but this level of awareness surprised him. I appreciate that, son. Are you going to tell me what's really happening? When the time is right. The next week, Elijah implemented the first phase of his plan. He filed a complaint with Meridian Medical's Human Resources Department, alleging that Neil Withers was engaged in an inappropriate relationship with a subordinate employee. He included copies of the email correspondence and documented evidence of their meetings. He also quietly moved most of their joint savings into a separate account, citing concerns about identity theft following Marla's medical treatments. The bank required both signatures for large transfers, so he kept the amount small and frequent. On Thursday, Marla came home from work looking upset. Bad day? Elijah asked. HR called a bunch of people in for interviews. Some kind of investigation about workplace conduct? What kind of conduct? They wouldn't say, but they asked really specific questions about my relationship with Neil Withers. Elijah kept his expression neutral. That's the compliance guy, right? Yeah. Someone must have reported something, because they wanted to know if we'd ever met outside of work, if we'd exchanged personal emails, stuff like that. What did you tell them? The truth. That we're friends, and we sometimes get coffee to discuss work stuff. And they said they'd be in touch if they needed to follow up. That night, Marla worked late again. But instead of going to Neil's apartment, she drove to a coffee shop downtown and sat alone for 2 hours, making phone calls. Elijah knew this because he'd been following her. The next morning, Meridian Medical suspended Neil Withers pending the outcome of their investigation. Marla found out when she arrived at work and discovered his office was locked, his computer had been confiscated, and his badge had been deactivated. She called in sick that afternoon and drove to Neil's apartment. Elijah was waiting in the parking lot when she arrived. He watched her walk quickly toward the building, her body language tense and urgent. She stayed inside for 3 hours. When she came out, she was crying. That evening, Marla was quiet during dinner. Eva chatted about prom plans, and Travis discussed his work schedule. But Marla just pushed food around her plate and checked her phone repeatedly. Mom, are you okay? Eva asked. Fine. Just tired. You've been tired a lot lately. Work is stressful right now. After dinner, Elijah found Marla in their bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed, with her phone in her hands. Want to talk about whatever's bothering you? He asked. She looked up at him with red eyes. Neil got suspended today. Your coworker? What for? They won't say exactly, but there's some investigation about inappropriate workplace relationships. That's serious. Yeah. Elijah sat beside her on the bed. Is there something you want to tell me, Marla? She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I made a mistake. What kind of mistake? I got involved with someone at work. Neil. Elijah felt his heartbeat slow down, the way it did when he was focusing on a particularly complex repair. Involved how? We were seeing each other, not just coffee. Really seeing each other? For how long? Since January. While you were recovering. Yes. They sat in silence. Outside their bedroom window, Elijah could hear traffic on the main road, people driving home from late shifts or evening activities. Normal people living normal lives. Why? He asked. Marla started crying. I don't know, I was scared and confused, and he made me feel... I don't know how to explain it. Try. Like I was still attractive, still desirable. Like I wasn't just a sick person. You were never just a sick person to me. I know, but you looked at me like I might break. Everyone did. Neil looked at me like I was still a woman. Elijah stood up and walked to the window. So, while I was paying for your treatment, you were sleeping with him. It wasn't like that. What was it like? It was about feeling alive again. About remembering who I used to be before all this happened. And who are you now? She didn't answer. Marla, I sold my inheritance to pay for your treatment. I cashed out my pension. I worked extra shifts and took on debt that'll take us years to pay off. I drove you to Philadelphia twice a week and held your hand through every appointment. I know. And the whole time you were planning to cheat on me. No, it wasn't planned. It just happened. Nothing just happens. You made choices. Marla wiped her eyes. What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? I am sorry. That I'll never do it again? I won't. That I love you? I do. But you love him too. She didn't deny it. I think you should sleep in the guest room tonight, Elijah said. I need to think about what happens next. Eli, please, can we talk about this? We just did. The next morning, Elijah called Patricia Sullivan and scheduled another appointment. Then he drove to work and taught his classes as usual. In the afternoon, a student named Jessica was struggling with a dishwasher installation, so he worked with her one-on-one to identify the problem. The water isn't draining properly, she said. I've checked all the connections twice. What about the drain hose? It looks fine. Show me. They examined the installation together. The drain hose was connected correctly, but it had a slight kink where it passed behind the dishwasher. The blockage was barely visible. There's your problem, Elijah said. Looks like it should work, but there's a restriction that prevents proper flow. How do I fix it? Disconnect everything and start fresh. Sometimes the only way to solve a problem is to rebuild from the ground up. That evening, Elijah made dinner for Travis and Eva while Marla worked late. Again. Where's Mom? Eva asked. Dealing with some work issues. Is she in trouble? I don't know. Dad, you're being weird. You're both being weird. Travis looked up from his plate. Maybe they're having marriage problems. Shut up, Travis. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying maybe they need to work some stuff out. Eva turned to Elijah. Are you guys getting divorced? Eva, that's not something you need to worry about right now. That's not an answer. Elijah set down his fork. Your mother and I are going through a difficult time. We're trying to figure out what comes next. Because of her cancer, partly. That's not fair. She almost died. You're right, it's not fair. But life wasn't fair. Fair would have been Marla fighting to save their marriage with the same intensity she'd fought to save her life. Fair would have been gratitude for the sacrifices he'd made, not betrayal. Fair would have been a lot of things. The following week, Neil Withers was terminated from Meridian Medical for violating the company's ethics policy. Marla received a formal reprimand and was transferred to a different department with a lower salary. She came home that evening looking defeated. They fired Neil, she said. I heard. From who? Word gets around. She stared at him. Did you report us? Does it matter? Of course it matters. If you turned us in, then you destroyed his career to get back at me. I didn't destroy his career. He did that himself when he decided to sleep with a married coworker. You son of a bitch. Careful, Marla. Your daughter's upstairs. Don't you dare lecture me about protecting our children when you're the one tearing this family apart. I'm not the one who had an affair. And I'm not the one who's trying to destroy people's lives over it. Elijah walked to the kitchen and opened a beer. Neil Withers chose to risk his career for sex with a married woman. That was his decision. Actions have consequences. What about my consequences? I got demoted. My salary got cut by $15,000 a year. Good. Marla stared at him. You really hate me. No, I hate what you did. There's a difference. Is there? Because it feels like you want to punish me forever. I want you to understand that the choices you made have destroyed our marriage and damaged our family. And yes, I want there to be consequences for that, even if it hurts the kids. The kids are already hurt. Eva thinks I'm the villain because she doesn't know the whole story. Travis is angry and confused because his mother betrayed the man who saved her life. This family was damaged the moment you decided to sleep with Neil Withers. Marla sat down at the kitchen table. So what happens now? Now you figure out how to live with what you've done. And you? I figure out how to live without you. That weekend, Travis came to Elijah while he was cleaning out the garage. Dad, I need to know what's really going on. What do you mean? Eva says Mom's being persecuted for getting sick. Mom says you're trying to destroy her life. You're not talking to anyone. I'm tired of being in the middle of this. Elijah set down the box he was holding. Your mother had an affair while she was recovering from cancer. Travis was quiet for a long moment. With who? A guy from her work. For how long? Few months. And you found out? Yeah. That's why you've been acting strange. Yeah. Travis sat on an overturned bucket. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. Are you going to divorce her? Probably. Do you want me to pick sides? I want you to make your own decisions based on your own values. My values say that people who cheat on their spouses are selfish cowards. My values also say that people who save their family from financial ruin and drive their sick wife to medical appointments twice a week for 4 months deserve loyalty and respect. Elijah looked at his son. When did you get so wise? I've been watching you my whole life. That evening, Eva confronted Elijah in the living room. Marla was upstairs taking a shower, and Travis was at work. Mom told me about the affair, she said. Okay. She said you're trying to ruin her life because of it. What do you think? I think she made a mistake, but I also think she was scared and vulnerable. People do stupid things when they're facing death. That's true. So why can't you forgive her? Elijah turned off the television and faced his daughter. Ava, do you remember when your mother was sick? Of course. Do you remember how we paid for her treatment? You guys figured it out somehow. I sold great-grandfather's land, 40 acres that had been in our family for 90 years. I cashed out my pension, 22 years of retirement savings. I maxed out our credit cards and took a second mortgage on this house. We're still paying off those debts. Ava's expression changed. I worked extra shifts and used all my vacation days to drive her to appointments. I held her hair while she vomited from chemo. I slept on a cot beside her hospital bed during her surgery. I did everything humanly possible to save her life. I know, Dad. And while I was doing all of that, she was planning to cheat on me with a coworker. The affair started in January, right after she went into remission. The first thing she did when she got her life back was betray the person who'd sacrificed everything to give it to her. Eva was crying now, but she was scared. We were all scared. I was terrified every single day that I was going to lose her. But I didn't handle my fear by betraying our family. So you can't forgive her? Some things are unforgivable. Even if she's sorry, being sorry doesn't undo the damage. Ava wiped her eyes. What happens to us? You and Travis will always be my children. Nothing changes that. But everything else changes. Yeah, everything else changes. In May, Patricia Sullivan filed divorce papers on Elijah's behalf. The proceedings were civil but thorough. Elijah's documentation of the affair, combined with Marla's reduced income, resulted in a favorable settlement. He kept the house, the truck, and most of their remaining assets. Marla kept her car and half of their reduced savings account. Travis chose to live with Elijah and finish his degree while working at Henderson's auto shop. Eva chose to live with Marla in a small apartment across town. Neil Withers moved to Cleveland after being unable to find work in Pittsburgh. His termination from Meridian Medical made him effectively unemployable in the local insurance industry. On the day the divorce was finalized, Elijah drove to the same hospital parking lot where this had all started. The fog was gone, replaced by bright June sunshine. He sat in his truck for a few minutes, thinking about the past year. His phone buzzed with a text message from Travis. Working late tonight, dinner's in the fridge. Another message from Ava. Love you, Dad. Even when we disagree. And then unexpectedly, a message from Marla. Can we talk? He typed back. About what? About us, about what happens next. There is no us, there is no next. Please, just coffee. One conversation. Elijah stared at the message for a long time. Then he deleted it without responding. Some conversations weren't worth having. Some bridges, once burned, couldn't be rebuilt. He started the truck and drove home to the life he'd built from the ashes of the one that had been destroyed. 3 months later, in September, Elijah was grading student papers when Travis came home from work looking upset. Dad, we need to talk. What's wrong? I saw Mom today, at the grocery store. Okay? She looks sick again. Elijah set down his pen. Sick how? Thin, tired, like she did before the cancer treatments. Did you talk to her? For a few minutes. She asked about you. What did you tell her? That you're doing okay, that you're dating someone new. Elijah had been seeing a woman named Linda Chang, a nurse practitioner he'd met at a community college fundraiser. Their relationship was comfortable and uncomplicated, two adults who enjoyed each other's company without drama or expectations. What else did Mom say? She asked if you'd consider talking to her. She said it was important. Did she say why? Travis hesitated. She said she might need help again. That evening, Elijah found himself back in the hospital parking lot, sitting in his truck as fog rolled across the asphalt. His phone showed 3 missed calls from Eva and 2 voicemails. He played the first message. "Dad, it's Eva. Mom went to the doctor today. Can you call me back?" The second message was longer. "Dad, Mom's cancer is back. It's bad this time. Stage 4. She asked if you would consider helping with treatment costs again. I know what happened between you guys, but she's still my mother. Please call me back." Elijah sat in the truck until the windows fogged over. Then he drove home without returning the calls. 2 weeks later, Marla showed up at his house. She looked terrible, gaunt, pale, wearing a winter coat even though it was still warm outside. Eva was with her, and both of them had been crying. "Hello, Eli," Marla said. "Marla, can we come in?" "No." Eva stepped forward. "Dad, please, just let us talk to you. There's nothing to talk about. Mom is dying." Elijah looked at Marla. She was definitely sick, thinner than she'd been even during her first round of treatments, with dark circles under her eyes and the translucent skin that came with severe illness. "I'm sorry to hear that," he said. "The treatments are expensive," Marla said. "More expensive than last time. I've applied for assistance programs, but the waiting lists are long, and I don't have that kind of time." "What do you want from me?" "A loan. I'll pay you back when I can." "With what? You're making $15,000 less than you used to make." "I'll figure something out." "Like you figured out how to manage your recovery the first time?" Eva glared at him. "Dad, that's cruel." "Is it? Because I seem to remember sacrificing everything I had to save her life once already." "How did that work out for me?" Marla started crying. "Eli, I know I hurt you. I know what I did was wrong. But I'm asking for help as the mother of your children, not as your ex-wife. And I'm refusing as someone who learned that helping you comes with a price I'm not willing to pay again. You'd let me die over something that happened a year ago? I'm not letting you do anything. Your medical decisions are your responsibility now. I made a mistake. You made a choice, and this is mine." Eva grabbed his arm. "Dad, please, she's my mother. Then you help her." "I'm 17 years old. I don't have any money." "Neither did I the first time. I found a way. By selling family land and cashing out your pension. I can't do that." "No, but Neil Withers can. Have you asked him for help?" Marla stopped crying and stared at him. "Neil moved to Cleveland. We don't talk anymore." "That's unfortunate. Maybe you should have thought about long-term financial planning before you decided to sleep with him." "You bastard." "Maybe. But I'm a bastard who learned from experience." Eva shook her head. "I can't believe this. I can't believe you're being this heartless." "I'm not being heartless. I'm being practical. Your mother needs expensive medical treatment. She has limited resources and limited options. Those are the same constraints I faced the first time, and I found a way to solve the problem. Now it's her turn." "By doing what?" "Whatever it takes." "Just like I did." Marla pulled Eva toward their car. "Come on, we're wasting our time here." "Mom, wait. No, Eva, your father's made his position clear." They drove away, leaving Elijah standing on his front porch. Travis appeared beside him a few minutes later. "I heard voices. Was that Mom and Eva?" "Yeah." "What did they want?" "Money for cancer treatment." Travis was quiet for a moment. "And you said no." "I said no." "Good." Elijah looked at his son. "You think I made the right choice?" "I think you made the only choice you could live with." That night, Eva called 6 times. Elijah didn't answer. She left increasingly desperate voicemails, begging him to reconsider, explaining that Marla's condition was deteriorating rapidly, that the doctors had given her maybe 6 months without aggressive treatment. The 7th call came at midnight. "Dad, I hate you for this. I will never forgive you. Never." The line went dead. Elijah set his phone on the nightstand and stared at the ceiling. In the morning, he would go to work and teach students how to fix broken appliances. Simple problems with logical solutions. This wasn't a simple problem, and there was no solution that wouldn't cost him something he valued. But he'd already paid that price once. A month later, Travis came home with news. "Eva's living with Mom's friend Darcy now," he said. "Why?" "Mom's in the hospital. Eva couldn't take care of her anymore." "Which hospital?" "Allegheny General. Same place where she had her surgery the first time." That evening, Elijah found himself driving toward the hospital without consciously deciding to go there. He parked in the same spot where he'd made the phone call to Uncle Pete 2 years earlier and sat in his truck thinking about cause and effect. His phone rang. Linda Chang. "Hey," she said. "Want to grab dinner?" "I just got off shift. I'm at the hospital." "Working late?" "No, my ex-wife is a patient here." Linda was quiet for a moment. "The one with cancer?" "Yeah. Are you going in?" "I don't know." "Do you want to talk about it?" "Not really." "Okay. Call me later if you change your mind." After she hung up, Elijah sat in the truck for another hour. Finally, he walked into the hospital and took the elevator to the oncology ward. Room 314. The same room where Marla had stayed during her surgery 2 years ago. She was asleep, and she looked worse than he'd expected. The cancer had ravaged her body in ways the first round of treatment had never done. She was connected to machines that monitored her vital signs and delivered medication through an IV line. Ava was sitting in the chair beside the bed, holding Marla's hand. She looked up when Elijah entered the room. "I didn't think you'd come," she said. "Neither did I. She's been asking for you." "When?" "Every day since she was admitted." Elijah approached the bed slowly. Marla's breathing was shallow and labored. Her skin had a grayish tint that he recognized from his father's final days. "How long?" he asked. "Days, maybe. The doctors stopped giving us timelines." They stood in silence, watching the machines monitor what was left of Marla's life. "I'm sorry, Dad," Ava said finally. "For what?" "For what I said on the phone. For blaming you." "For not understanding. You don't need to apologize for loving your mother. But I do need to understand that love doesn't erase what people do to each other." Elijah put his hand on Eva's shoulder. "That's the hardest lesson anyone ever learns." Marla's eyes opened. She looked around the room until she found Elijah's face. "You came," she whispered. "Yeah, I wasn't sure you would." "I wasn't sure either." She tried to sit up, but the effort was too much. "I need to tell you something." "Okay." "I was pregnant." Ava gasped. Elijah felt the floor shift beneath him. "When?" he asked. "During the affair. I lost the baby in June." "Neil's baby, yes." "Did he know?" "No, I never told him." Elijah processed this information slowly. "Is that why you broke it off with him?" "Partly. The baby made everything real. Made me realize what I'd done to our family." "But you didn't tell me." "How could I? You already hated me." "I didn't hate you. I hated what you'd done." "What's the difference?" Elijah didn't answer. Marla closed her eyes. "I'm sorry, Eli. For everything. For the affair. For hurting you. For destroying what we had. I know. Do you forgive me?" The question hung in the air between them. Ava watched his face, waiting for an answer that would define how she remembered this moment for the rest of her life. "I forgive you for being human," Elijah said finally. "I forgive you for being scared and making bad choices. I don't forgive you for betraying 20 years of marriage while I was saving your life. That's honest. It's all I have." Marla died 3 days later. Elijah paid for the funeral. At the service, Ava spoke about her mother's strength and resilience. Travis talked about her dedication to her work and her love for her family. Elijah said nothing. Darcy approached him after the ceremony. "She really did love you," she said. "I know, and she was grateful for everything you did for her during the first cancer." "Was she grateful enough to stay faithful?" Darcy's face flushed. "That's not fair. You knew about the affair, didn't you?" "Yes." "From the beginning?" "Yes. And you encouraged it." "I thought she deserved to feel alive again. At my expense." "She was dying, Eli. Or we thought she was. When someone's facing death, normal rules don't apply. Normal rules always apply. That's what makes them normal. You're a cold man. I'm a practical man. There's a difference." Darcy walked away, shaking her head. 6 months later, Eva graduated from high school and moved to Philadelphia for college. She hugged Elijah before she left. "I love you, Dad. Even when I don't understand your choices, I love you too. Will you be okay?" "I'll be fine." "What about Travis?" "Travis is tougher than both of us." She smiled. "He gets that from you." After Eva left, the house felt different. Travis was working full-time now and taking evening classes toward his engineering degree. Elijah's relationship with Linda had evolved into something comfortable and supportive. One evening in late summer, he was grading papers when Travis came home from work. "Dad, I need to ask you something." "What's that?" "Do you ever regret not helping Mom with the second cancer treatment?" Elijah set down his pen. "Every day." "But you'd make the same choice again?" "Every day. Even knowing she was going to die?" "Especially knowing she was going to die." Travis sat across from him at the kitchen table. "I don't understand." "When your mother cheated on me, she made a choice about what our marriage was worth to her. When she asked for help the second time, I made a choice about what my self-respect was worth to me." "And your self-respect was worth more than her life?" "My self-respect was worth more than enabling someone who'd already proven they didn't value what I had to offer." "That sounds harsh." "It is harsh. But the alternative was teaching both of you that there are no consequences for betraying the people who love you most." Travis was quiet for a long time. "I think I understand. Do you? You weren't just punishing Mom. You were protecting yourself from becoming someone who could be taken advantage of indefinitely." "That's part of it." "What's the other part?" "The other part is that I'd already sacrificed everything once to save her, and she used that gift to justify betraying me. I wasn't going to make the same mistake twice, even if it meant she would die. Even if it meant she would die." 2 years later, Eva called with news that she was engaged to a medical student named James. They planned to marry after graduation. "I want you to walk me down the aisle," she said. "I'd be honored. James wants to meet you." "I'd like to meet him." "Dad?" "Yeah? I understand now. What you did. Why you did it. What changed your mind? I'm in love now. Really in love. And I can't imagine betraying James the way Mom betrayed you. I can't imagine hurting someone who'd sacrificed everything for me. People make different choices when they're scared, but you made the right choice. Both times. I made the only choices I could live with. That's the same thing." The wedding was beautiful. Eva looked radiant in her white dress, and James seemed like a decent young man who genuinely loved her. During the father-daughter dance, Eva whispered in Elijah's ear, "Thank you for showing me what real love looks like." "What do you mean?" "Real love doesn't just sacrifice for people. Real love also holds people accountable for their choices." Elijah spun her around the dance floor, thinking about consequences and forgiveness and the difference between being loved and being valued. "Your mother loved me," he said. "But she didn't value what we had. And you valued yourself enough not to accept that. I valued our family enough not to teach you that betrayal is acceptable if you're scared or sick or confused. I'm glad you did. Are you? I'm glad my children will grow up knowing that actions have consequences and that people who love you will hold you to a higher standard, not a lower one." After the wedding, Elijah drove home alone. Travis had moved out the previous month to start his engineering job in Cleveland. The house felt empty but peaceful. His phone buzzed with a text from Linda. "How was the wedding?" "Beautiful." Eva looked happy. "Are you okay?" "I'm good." "Really good. Want company tonight?" "Always." As he waited for Linda to arrive, Elijah sat on his front porch and thought about the past 4 years. He'd lost a wife, gained a son's respect, lost a daughter's trust, then gained it back. He'd learned that love without accountability wasn't love at all. It was enablement. Some people believed that love meant forgiveness, no matter what. Elijah had learned that love sometimes meant consequences. The fog was rolling in from the river, just like it had that morning in the hospital parking lot when this all began. But tonight, Elijah wasn't afraid of what he couldn't see clearly. He'd built a life based on principles he could live with. Not perfect principles, not easy principles, but honest ones. Linda's car pulled into the driveway. She got out carrying a bottle of wine and a bag of Chinese takeout, smiling at him the way someone smiles when they're genuinely happy to see you. "How do you feel about the wedding?" she asked. "Like I raised a daughter who knows her own worth." "And how do you feel about everything else?" Elijah stood up and took the food from her hands. "Like I know mine too." They went inside together, closing the door on the fog and everything it represented. 6 months later, Elijah received a package with no return address. Inside was a notebook filled with handwriting he recognized as Marla's. The first page was dated 2 weeks before she died. Eli, if you're reading this, then Eva gave you my journal like I asked her to. I spent the last months writing down everything I wanted to say to you but couldn't. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything. But I need you to know that I understand now what I destroyed, and I understand why you couldn't help me the second time. You weren't being cruel. You were being honest about what I was worth to you after what I'd done. I deserved that honesty, even if I couldn't handle it. I hope you find someone who values what you have to offer. I hope our children learn from my mistakes instead of repeating them. I hope you remember that I loved you, even though I loved myself more. M. Elijah read the journal twice, then put it in his desk drawer. Some confessions came too late to change anything, but they still mattered. That evening, he called Eva. "Did you read it?" she asked. "Yeah." "What did you think?" "I think your mother finally understood the difference between being sorry and taking responsibility." "Is that enough?" "It's something. Do you miss her?" Elijah thought about the question carefully. "I miss who she used to be. I miss who we used to be together. But I don't miss the person she became, and I don't miss the marriage we had after she betrayed it. That makes sense? Does it help you?" "It helps me understand that love is complicated, but choices aren't." "What do you mean?" "Love is messy and emotional and hard to define. But choices are clear. You either choose to honor your commitments or you don't. You either choose to value the people who sacrifice for you or you don't. And your mother chose not to. And you chose not to let that be okay, even when it cost her everything. Especially when it cost her everything." After they hung up, Elijah sat in his kitchen and thought about the conversation. Eva had learned the lesson he'd been trying to teach, even if the price had been higher than any of them expected. The next morning, he drove to the cemetery where Marla was buried. He hadn't been there since the funeral, but Eva had mentioned that she visited regularly. Marla's headstone was simple. "Beloved mother, 1,983 to 2,022 inches. Elijah stood beside the grave for a few minutes, not praying or grieving, just thinking about the choices that had led them both to this place. "I got your journal," he said finally. "Thank you for being honest about what happened. I wish you'd been that honest while you were alive." The wind moved through the trees around the cemetery, carrying the sound of traffic from the main road. Normal people living normal lives, dealing with their own choices and consequences. "I hope you found what you were looking for with Neil," Elijah continued. "I hope those few months of feeling desired were worth 20 years of marriage and the respect of your children and the security of your family." He turned to leave, then stopped. "For what it's worth, I did love you. Right up until the moment I found out about the affair. After that, I loved the memory of you, but I couldn't love who you'd become." As he walked back to his truck, Elijah felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Closure, not forgiveness. Not reconciliation. Not peace with what had happened. Just closure. The understanding that this chapter of his life was complete and that he'd handled it the only way his principles would allow. 3 months later, Linda moved in with him. They combined their furniture, their routines, and their future plans. Travis visited for Christmas, bringing his new girlfriend Sarah. Eva and James came for New Year's, announcing that they were expecting their first child. On New Year's Eve, as they sat around the kitchen table playing cards and drinking wine, Eva asked Linda what she thought about the way Elijah had handled his divorce. "I think your father is a man who knows his own worth," Linda said. "And I think he's a man who expects the people he loves to know theirs too. Even when it's difficult, especially when it's difficult." Travis shuffled the cards. "Dad, do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd forgiven Mom and tried to work things out?" "Every day. And I think we would have been miserable for the rest of our lives, pretending that what she did was acceptable because she was sick and scared." "You think she would have cheated again?" "I think she would have learned that there are no real consequences for betraying me, and that's not a lesson I wanted to teach anyone." Sarah, who'd been quiet most of the evening, spoke up. My parents went through something similar when I was in high school. My mom had an affair, my dad forgave her, and they tried to make it work. How did that turn out? Eva asked. They're still married, but they're both miserable. My dad never got over it, my mom never stopped feeling guilty, and my brother and I learned that marriage is something you endure rather than something you enjoy. Linda reached across the table and squeezed Elijah's hand. Some people think love means never giving up on someone. I think love means knowing when someone has given up on themselves. And when they give up on you, Elijah added. At midnight, they stood on the back porch and watched fireworks over the river. Eva hugged Elijah tightly. I'm proud of you, Dad. For what? For teaching me that self-respect isn't selfish. What do you mean? You could have forgiven Mom and tried to save your marriage. Everyone would have understood. Everyone would have said you were being noble and generous. But you would have been teaching Travis and me that betrayal is acceptable if you're scared enough or sick enough or sorry enough afterward. And instead you taught us that some things are more important than keeping peace. Some things are more important than avoiding conflict. Some things are worth losing everything to protect. Like what? Like knowing that the people who claim to love you actually value what you have to offer. Travis joined their conversation. I never told you this, Dad, but after the divorce, a lot of people said you were heartless for not helping Mom with the second cancer treatment. I know. But I always defended you. Why? Because I watched you sacrifice everything to save her. Life the first time, and then I watched her throw that gift away for a few months of excitement with another man. And I realized that if you'd helped her the second time, you would have been teaching me that women can treat men however they want, as long as they're pretty enough or vulnerable enough or sorry enough afterward. Sarah nodded. You taught your children that love requires mutual respect. I taught them that I respect myself enough not to accept unacceptable behavior, Elijah corrected. Even from people I love. As the new year began, Elijah felt something he hadn't experienced since before Marla's first cancer diagnosis. Optimism about the future. Not because he'd gotten revenge on his ex-wife. Not because he'd proven a point or won a contest. Because he'd built a life based on principles he could defend, surrounded by people who valued what he had to offer. The fog was rolling in from the river again, but this time Elijah wasn't afraid of what he couldn't see clearly. He'd learned to navigate by his own moral compass, and it had led him to exactly where he needed to be. The end.